Okay, good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club meeting for Thursday, November 30th. My name is John Milliker and I'm the club president for the 2022-2023 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the art, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit arundelcameraclub.org. We are obviously happy to be meeting in person again. If you are local to Anne Arundel County, Maryland, we encourage you to visit us at the Severna Park Baptist Church, located at 506 Benfield Road, Severna Park, Maryland. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I want to remind everybody that the Christmas party is coming up, which Christine will talk a little bit about, and she'll talk about the little gift exchange that we do. Do we have any announcements from officers?
Do you want one?
Yes.
Uh-oh, Ed, come on up.
I'm gonna make him walk.
Here we go. Hold on a second, Christine. Let me know when you see Ed.
It's a green one.
There we
On
go.
December the 17th.
Hold on. You need the magic stick.
On December the
If that fails, it's the
17th,
blue
we have
one.
a wonderful field trip to Longwood Gardens. Longwood Gardens, yes. And I must remind everybody, because everybody's going to be going, make sure you call up and get your ticket. You have to get a ticket at a particular time. And it's really nice. It's really nice to go at like in the afternoon. And then you can have they have a very nice cafeteria there where you can get a nice meal. And then in the evening, that's where it happens. It's beautiful in the evening. And they also have an organ recital inside, and they have beautiful Christmas trees, and it's just fantastic. And the trees are lit up at night. At night, you can go all around and you see the beautiful trees. Don't miss it.
All right.
If you think you're going but haven't quite decided, go online now and check the availability of tickets. I looked at that date, and some of those afternoon slots, like 1 o'clock onwards, are already sold out.
Uh-oh.
So get an idea now as to what entrance times are available. Once you're in, they don't kick you out, but figure out what's going on now so you can plan ahead.
Okay. Can we get there early and camp out the night before? They'll probably kick us out. Fix this. Christine, I'm putting that in your hands. If Ed's infectious enthusiasm for the field trip did not encourage you, I don't know what will. Any other announcements? Yes, sir. Mike.
You make Todd one about the Christmas party?
I think that's Christine's job. Christine, well, let's move it over to Christine, who's going to talk about the schedule coming up. Then we'll move it over to Ron and introduce our judge for tonight. Careful of the key. Don't shot.
Good evening. Next week we have our first contest for December on December 7th, our digital contest for craftsmen and artisans. December 14th is our Christmas party. It will be at the Hockles. An email will go out that tells you the information on it. Anyone who wants to come and participate, bring a dish to share with everyone. We have lots of food. We have a gift exchange, $25 or less. And it's a lot of fun, but your gift could get stolen from you. The third owner is the permanent owner. And it's always a lot of fun, and come on out and join us. On December 21st is our print contest for December, which is also craftsmen and artisans. On December 28th, there'll be no meeting because that is in the middle of the holidays. And then January 4th, we have a program by Padma Nguva on photographing places of worship, getting us ready for our first contest in the spring. And now I'll invite Ron up to introduce our judge.
All right. I'm going to squeeze in two commercial breaks here while we're at it. First, MPA divvied up the money that came in from the last contest and so on and so forth. We have about $37 now. Not a big amount. So next time we have a contest, more of you contribute pictures to that, and the club gets some money back from that, so that will be good. But nevertheless, we did get a number of participants, and maybe one of our images came through to the end this time, so I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to go online and find out what that is. Now, the other thing on MPAs, if you go to their website, they've now moved something called Maryland Masters up to the beginning, where it used to be further back in and it was hard to find. So we have 5 or 6 videos, online videos, and tonight's guest judge is one of the first. In fact, you were the first one we did in that series, right? So in that particular video, you really need to watch it. I was looking at it today, and it just makes you think about what you need to be looking at when you pick up the camera. And she's just so very gentle and quiet, and you're reading this, you're watching this, and think, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? It's just really a wonderful piece, and I think the lady that hosted that with you knew the right questions to ask. It was just really a wonderful video. And there are a number of other ones around there if you have other interest areas that are worth doing. We're trying to do more of those rather than make sure you're plugged into a certain time. You can go to the website, click view, and see it now. So it's really a very cool thing. So, and speaking of this evening, our judge tonight, as you can tell, is Janet Little Jeffers. Now, if you don't recognize her, that means you haven't been around the club for a while. Janet, how many times do you think you've been with us?
I'm not sure. I've lost track.
It's been, you've been here a number of times, even to the point that she was a judge when we were back at the Severna Park High School. And that's way, way pre-COVID, so that goes back quite a bit. And I first ran into her work at the bottom of the
Bromo-Seltzer Tower.
well, not the Bromo-Seltzer Tower. I ran into her there again, which is when I got her contact information to make sure she would start judging for us. But she does have a studio there, and you do need, if you get a chance, walk through and look at her work and buy some, you know, among other things. But it's really just quite astounding, and she has an eye that just is always good. So I always learn something whenever, even though she doesn't always pick my numbers. But she does a really good job of helping you see things that you might not see otherwise. So Janet got her BA from Towson University and an MA in Publications Design from University of Baltimore. She worked in the area of graphic design, interior design, and broadcasting before committing to a full-time career as a visual artist. And as we mentioned, her studio is in the Bromo-Seltzer building. And I was up there many years ago and came down through, and it was just, you know, it's a small studio with a lot of just visual impact. You just need to walk in and take a look, and it just makes, again, it makes you think, and she'll even talk to you if she's there. So that's good. She's done a lot of, the key thing is her photography homes in on details that you often just don't overlook. Now, I mentioned to her I was out in New Mexico and Utah recently, and from the contact these few times judging, I started looking at rocks and sand and leaves and details that just popped out at me that weren't before. And hopefully after tonight, some of you will get inoculated with that as well. She is always looking at the natural and the man-made worlds, and that's why the video out at the train station, train museum in Baltimore is really quite good. Now, her passion for nature and travel has taken her to locations all over the globe. She doesn't do just Baltimore area. She's been in Africa and Antarctica, as well as her own backyard. Her work has featured solo and group exhibitions. She's been also featured in print and on a number of online publications that are available, film and video, permanent installations, and including some large-scale window and wall murals. So if you're a professional artist, these are the kind of things you want to have in your portfolio. She is currently a juror and presenter for a number of photography outlets. She works from a studio in the historic Bromo-Seltzer Arts Building in Baltimore, now lives near Annapolis, Maryland. I think I said that before. But anyway, Janet, thank you so much for coming out and putting up with us one more evening. But we have I looked through the stack, and we have some really great stuff here. So it's going to be fun for all of us to see. So, Bob, what's it look like this evening?
We have 10 novice mono, 10 novice color, 29 unlimited mono, and 34 unlimited color. So
So it looks like we'll have a contest.
I think so.
Okay. All right, let me hand that to you.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned to you, this will be online and live right now as well.
That's fine.
Facebook Live.
Okay, so we can
Bob, it's all yours.
kill the lights.
And is it okay to move this stand, or is that?
Maybe you should slide to the left.
Yeah, or should I slide, or should that slide?
If you could slide, I'd appreciate it,
Yes.
because otherwise people complain that the perspective's off a little bit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
but if it's in your way, then definitely move
No,
it.
no, no, no.
You're the most important part.
No, and actually the images are, but I can move around it. Okay.
Okay.
I'll be careful to
Novice mono. Scene stealer. Winchester Cathedral arches. Rainy day at Sandy Point. Falls. Blackwater Falls. Catching the last flight. Calf coming to say hi. Triplets. A day at the beach. Devil's Alley. Okay, there we are.
so remind me,
There's one right
in
there.
this group, there will be.
All right, yeah.
First, second, third, and fourth, and is it one honorable mention, Bob?
Yes, one honorable.
First, second, third, fourth, and then honorable. Okay. This is a really lovely portrait. I'm really impressed with how sharp and precise that focus is on the child's eyes. And, normally, the lightest thing in an image really is often the thing that grabs your attention first. And it's kind of a bold choice to have this very light window, and then, the actual subject is darker than that. But in this case, I think it really, it frames the child really well. It's nicely done. I like, too, the little detail that the baby's holding the Nikon camera lens cover as a Nikon person. I can appreciate that little detail. Maybe a future photographer.
Would you like in or out?
Oh, in, sorry. Apologies. I think this is a really nice use of pattern and repetition. I think with an image like this, we've seen a lot of this type of image, and I think you have to be really careful about the details. Your lines are really nice and parallel and straight. It looks like the verticals are all in line, which is really good because sometimes you can get things, distorted by perspective. I think to take this a step further, if you can, where your eye ends in that middle part, that at the end of that little archway at the end, if there's some little special something there that, like a finishing point for your eye, I think it can be even more successful as an image. So, pay attention to the details like that. I think there might be a little extra at the top. I feel like there might be a little room at the top that you could crop off. It could be perhaps just a little bit sharper in your detail, but it's really well seen. Just keep pushing, because I like where you're going with this. But I'll say that one's out.
Can you speak up a little bit louder?
Oh, okay. I'm not hearing. Pardon?
That doesn't play
Oh,
in the room.
okay.
It just goes online.
Okay, I'll speak louder for the room then. Sorry, I thought this was also going in here. Yeah, I love the creativity of this. It's the effect is very dreamlike, and there's something that appears more like something other than a photograph, which I enjoy that as a variation on what we're used to seeing in a landscape. And it's nice because there's enough mystery, but you can tell that it's a tree and a structure, and it's a landscape of sorts. And you've made good use of this lens flare kind of thing. So it's a really good creative picture. I think maybe there's a little bit, like in the center, is a little bit blown out. I would like to see maybe a little bit more detail in the center of the sky, but otherwise I think this is really pretty cool. I'll say that's in. First of all, I love that you've chosen this very tall crop of this image. It really emphasizes the verticality of it, the falls, and then the way the water continues down. It's a really nice touch. You've got a nice diagonal here and then a diagonal down there, and they kind of frame the falls really nicely. The sharpness looks nice. I think your exposure looks great. The details. I could see maybe, I think maybe at the edges, sometimes there's like a little something, I'm getting really nitpicky here, like little details at the edges that can kind of draw your eye out a little bit. But those are easy enough to clean up. I would, just pay attention to those kinds of things. Like there's this little line here that kind of catches my eye a little bit. But otherwise, I think this is nicely seen and nice chosen format for it. That's in. This is really beautiful, and your printing here really makes it just jump off of the page, off of the paper. Whatever your choices were there, I think are really nice, and it's reminding me of why I really enjoy looking at prints, because for the last few years it feels like we're looking at screens so much more, and it really is so valuable to be looking at prints and seeing what the image does when you print it, because so often there is a difference. But with that aside, I think this is really nicely captured. The movement of the water is handled really nicely with that sort of silky long exposure effect. I would kind of love to see this rock here. I'd love to see the full shape of that rock resolved. It's cutting off here at the edge. I think it would be just a little bit more clean compositionally. It would feel a little bit more open and less crowded in that lower corner if we saw the full shape of that rock. But I do like the way that the bushes over here frame the falls and the way you've included a little bit of the background. So I think this is really lovely. That's in. I think this is a really neat, what a great opportunity to shoot these two subjects together. I I like the inclusion of them both, and I also like the format that you've treated this as almost a panorama. I am a little bit unclear about the processing, the way that this is, it's almost textured on the top and on the bottom. It looks like there's a blur and some texture in there, but it's not on the middle of the image. And there's a pretty strong line of demarcation where that processing seems to begin and end. That is pulling my attention away a little bit from the main subjects, which are the plane and the balloon. And I think, we're drawing a relationship here between these two things. So I think you could actually, crop this even more from the top, and maybe choose a different way to process that, because I think that effect might be a little bit distracting to me, but I really like where it's going. I would also suggest, if there's any, it would be great if there were a little bit more room in front of the plane there. The plane feels a little bit like it's pushing the side of the image over here compared to how much room the balloon has. And since the plane's clearly traveling in this direction to the left, the human eye kind of wants to see some space that plane can fly into. So that's just another suggestion of how this could be, even stronger as an image. So I'll say that's out. That's a cute little guy. I think you've done a great job here of your depth of field, where he looks to be in pretty sharp focus, but then the background is nicely blurred. So there's there's a sense of place and of context, but it's not super distracting. I think that maybe this is a little contrasty. It feels like maybe the contrast is a little bit punched up. There's a little bit of extra highlight, in the fur, where it looks like the highlights are almost blown out. And I think the background is kind of crunchy and highlighty too. I think you could maybe dial back on the processing a little bit, soften the effect, and I think it'll be an even stronger image that way. But I also like that the composition, that he's off center too. You've not just placed him dead center in the frame. So, keep going. I like what you're doing, but I'll say that one's out too. So this is a cool little detail where I like that, we're looking at something that, first glance, you don't know the scale of it. Whether, when you look at it from a distance, are these real, or are they clearly, once you look closely, they're toys. So it's a nice little study of the forms of these little VW buses. And I like too that they're, they've got some space around them. The background is very simple, but there's a little bit of hint of, that they're sitting on some sort of surface. So there's a little detail there. Again, I'll be really nitpicky and say, maybe the highlights on the top are a little bit white, a little bit blown out, but otherwise I think it looks like you've lit this nicely. And it's a neat little black and white study that you've arranged well and lit well, and it looks like the processing's nice too. So that's in. So this is a fun sort of active portrait. I like how you've caught a great gesture in this, the outstretched arms. She's got a great expression on her face. There's energy there. I like the way the foot is turned, and you see this little footprint. And even the water has a nice flow to it, and there's that nice little energetic splash there that echoes her expression and her gesture, her arms out. And I think that's all really fun. I think you've done a really nice job of capturing it. I think you could maybe lighten up, do a little bit of lightening up on the face, just to bring a little bit more into that, maybe darken the sky a little bit to kind of, bring the subject forward a little bit. The phone, I think the phone in the hand is a little distracting, but that's kind of, it's a modern day portrait. So I think that just kind of indicates this is the time we live in, and that even when you go to the beach, you've got the phone. So I think this is really nicely done. That's it. So I think this is a really nice composition. There's it's a great little architectural study, with, you've got the shapes and the buildings and then the wheel. There's a nice contrast there with the organic, you've got trees around it. So there's some nice framing and there's some really nice composition happening here. I'm not a particularly big fan of this type of processing of filters and these kind of effects that sort of try to look like other types of drawing or etching or what have you. So I mean, I'm afraid that's my own bias, but I do like what else is going on here, and I think this is a nice scene that you've captured really well. But of course, the effect kind of makes it hard for me to tell, whether your sharpness and whether your exposure and all those technical things were really good, or whether the effect is kind of masking a mistake. So I like where you're going. I prefer to see the photographic product instead. So I'll say that's out.
You want to just lay them out?
I think so.
That'd be all right with you? We'll lay them out.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's one going to fall under.
Right, got it. Yep.
While she's taking a look at this, I might mention that in the last couple contests, print contests, some folks were a little concerned about that they might have gotten
One needs to go, and then you
such
have
to their prints. So we put them
1 to 4
on
and
tables
honorable
like this so we
mention.
can spread out a little bit when you pick them up. So just be a little bit extra careful that you don't scratch somebody else's print when you pick it up. Is that
It's still in.
I'm sorry.
That went eliminated.
Sorry.
Okay. So, all right. First, one. Second. Third. Fourth.
Okay, tonight's monochrome novice Fourth place, Day at the Beach, Sarah Darrett. Okay. The delay.
Is Sarah out there someplace? Yeah. Talk a little bit about your picture.
It was my mom's 60th birthday, and so we just went out and spent a little time at the beach for her 60th birthday.
Lovely. Right. Fourth place, Doug Wood.
Wait, you said the last one you said was fourth. Did you mean
This is honorable mention. Honorable mention, yeah. This is the fourth one. Doug Wood, who's not with us.
what's it called?
Falls. Yeah, he's in North Carolina, so he sends his prints in.
The attack.
Delay. Third place, black and white mono, Diane Vatcher.
Thank you. That is Sandy Point, and it was a very cold January morning with my son, and that is an ice filter. I took up a piece of ice from the ground, and I put it in front of my lens, and that's it.
Pop this camera here.
Oh. Now you tell me.
Is
Right.
that the title, black and white mono?
Ron,
No,
Doug told me about his, if you want me to.
Okay, sure.
Rainy Day at
for-
Sandy Point.
For the waterfall, Doug says it's from Hanging Rock State Park, the Upper Cascade Falls. So that's from Doug.
Okay, second place, Blackwater Falls.
Who is it?
Catherine Rush.
It was taken at Blackwater Falls in West Virginia in October. I don't know. There were a lot of people taking a lot of photos. And I saw that rock going off just as you pointed it out. And I was like, you're right. I should have caught that whole thing.
First place, Catherine Rush, Scene Stealer.
So that was our granddaughter's, our first granddaughter's, first birthday this October. And she was in her tunnel, you know, one of those climbing tunnels the little kids have. And she did, in fact, steal my lens cap. So I thought it was sort of funny. So the funny thing on this is that I had thought I printed it in color, but I had forgotten that I had turned on to mono. And when it came out of the printer, I just like, oh. I printed it in color later, but I stuck with the mono.
Yeah, I do that all winter.
Novice first?
We're doing all novice first?
What's that?
We're doing all novice first?
No, we're going to do mono unlimited.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Fred, can you scooch that down that way a little bit?
Oh, sure. I was going by this line.
Yeah, Bob.
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
I don't know why I was doing that.
Bob, how many do we have for this competition?
For mono, unlimited, we have 29, which is first through fourth and 3 honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions, okay.
Yep. Oh, you've got your pointer, right. Okay.
got my tools.
Okay.
All right, is everyone able to hear me in here? I know it's hard when I'm facing that way, but were you able to hear me?
Okay, mono, unlimited, diagonals. Blowing a smoke ring. Yosemite Valley. Church Reflection. Spanish Monument. Franklin Fireboat. Cliffhangers. School teacher. Miss Rosetta. Grab and go. Shiprock Storm. Elegant Beauty. Tilt-A-Whirl. Silhouette Star. Swirls. Tree Abstract. Last Splash.
Excuse me.
Mishap. The bear's ears. Francis Street. National Building Museum. Rosie Star. Cowboy with Hat. Walk in the Woods. Love Gray Symmetry. Decaying Dreams. Rose. In the Clouds. plumes of grass. There we are. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Starting with a really strong graphic abstract statement here. It's a nice study of pattern, again, and repetition. And there's some mystery here because it's abstract enough that I'm really not sure what the original subject is, which I do enjoy that mystery. And I like that it's very starkly black and white. I think when you're doing something like this, though, I think you really want it to be as sharp all the way through as you possibly can. And the bottom half gets a little bit soft in the focus. Might be because of the settings that you had to shoot at, or for whatever reason. That does kind of take me out of some of the feel, the pattern of it, and I'm not sure whether I think those are shadows, a structure and shadows. It's interesting because I look at it and I see a little bit more and a little bit more. I would be careful of when you're doing something like this. I think you need to be really, really neat about the corners. And there's like this one little corner up here that kind of breaks the pattern. And corners can be tricky because they're like little spots where your eye can get trapped coming into the picture and leave your eye over there. So, watch those details like that. I think this is a really neat study, but it could be just a little bit more precise for such a precise subject matter. Keep working on those details to make it even stronger. But it's very cool, well seen. I'll say that. Oh yeah, we're doing in and out. So I'll say this one's out. This is a fun sort of environmental portrait. I like that you've just, caught the whole gesture and expression of making that smoke ring. The outfit, the costume, really just kind of puts it all into an interesting context. I like that the background is nice and soft and not distracting. It looks like it was even shot with a flash, but I think you've handled the light really well in this case, and flash is not always kind to a subject. My little quibble might be that it would be even better if there were a little bit more separation between the subject and the smoke ring, just a little bit more, makes things a little bit more dramatic. And perhaps, you got a lot of empty space over here on the left. I think a little cropping couldn't hurt it. But otherwise, I think this is nicely seen, nicely exposed, good sharpness, good depth of field, and a fun moment. So well done. That's in. This is such an iconic place and an iconic scene. We've all seen pictures so many times that it's. I'm going to be really, I'm going to be really picky with, when we're shooting places that everyone's seen a lot. You really want to bring your perspective to it, and you really want to get the details very, very good. And this is well seen, and this is a nice composition. I like the way that you've, included, the side here kind of giving a little bit of a window to the scene. The waterfalls, of course, are beautiful. I think this might be a tad overexposed. We're losing some definition in this bright cloud right here. I'd really like to see that not quite so bright. And I think the waterfalls are perhaps a little overexposed too. I don't see a lot of definition in that water. And So that's just something to pay attention to. But it's a beautiful scene, and your sharpness looks really nice. Just keep watching those details. So that's out. This is a really nice architectural abstraction. I love all these little bits and pieces of reflection in here. I think there's so much happening in all these little panes of glass that can be really interesting, smaller pictures in themselves. I kind of want to get closer and see, like, this part close up, or, different parts of it. But taken as a whole, I think it makes a really nice impact as well. I think your focus is really dead on. The sharpness is great. The clarity, the exposure looks good. And it's interesting to look at. It kind of draws me in. I don't even mind the sort of perspective distortion on this, the way that the lines are converging towards the top. I think in this case, sometimes we like to straighten all that up and have it look very, square and precise. In this case, I think it sort of works with the nature of that reflection. It makes it a little bit more abstract, a little more dynamic. So I like your choice of that for this image. So that's in. This is a nicely handled nighttime shot. I like that, we see the motorcycle moving in the foreground. I think that little sense of motion is a nice touch. It's a very classic feeling image, and I like the street lights. They kind of have a nice framing effect on the building. I think you've handled the exposure and the detail well. It's the kind of scene. It's very classic. We've seen it a lot, but I think you've done it very well. And I really can't find a whole lot to sort of quibble with on this one. Maybe on this, I would consider sort of straightening out the perspective distortion a little bit. Kind of correcting those lines. I think in this case, you could do that. This line is sort of going up, and I think the column over here where the building could be more straight, vertical on both sides. But again, I'm sort of nitpicking in here. So, but that's in. I like this scene. I love the Domino Sugar sign, and I'm glad to see somebody photographing that area. Yeah, I think you've done a nice job of getting a lot of information in this photo. There's a great sense of place, a lot of detail, and you've handled the detail nicely. My suggestion for this one would be that it feels like this is the center of the image is very crowded right here. I kind of want to see a little bit more separation between Franklin and between the boat here and between the Domino Sugar building. And it feels like those are the two main components in this picture, and like right now they're sort of fighting with one another a bit because they're clumped in the middle. If they were a bit more separated, I feel like I would be appreciating them more in their relationship to one another. So, again, I would pay attention to these relationships and the photographs and what you want people to be looking at, because I am looking at this first, mainly because of the lettering on it. But right now they're competing a little bit, and I would love to have a little bit more hierarchy in that composition. But otherwise, I think your details are really nice. So that's out. This one's kind of mysterious. Like at first, there's a lot of texture. I'm not sure, what or where it is exactly. It looks like it's a rock formation, and maybe there's water down here. It's kind of hard to tell. And many of you know that I'm a big fan of abstraction. I love excuse me, I love the pushing into the abstract, the use of abstraction. There's a point though where you want to give the viewer something to kind of grab onto in an image, and I feel like maybe this is a little too chaotic. There's a little too much abstraction, because I'm having a hard time identifying like exactly where my eye needs to go, although it is coming in here. It's interesting, and I do want to look at different parts of it. So that part is good. It's just, it leaves me a little bit confused, and I feel like maybe if this is water down here, maybe more of a water line would provide just a little bit more structure to the image. I think it could handle just a little bit more structure to give the viewer a little bit of a clue, a little tiny bit of context to hang that abstraction on. I hope that makes sense to you. So I'll say that's out. I think this is really nicely done. You know, the expression, the pose, the lighting is really excellent. I think you've handled the, you know, all of the technical details are really great. I think, you know, the composition is really nice. There's just enough lettering behind her that you don't get caught actually reading the words too much. She is still very much the main subject of the image, and that can be difficult sometimes when you've got a busy background. But I think you've handled this really well. It's very, very professionally done, really nice. That's in. Another one that, again, I would say has just been handled really beautifully from a technical standpoint. I like the choice of the sepia tone for this. It suits the subject really well. I think you know, it's a very thoughtful composition and pose, the way that, you know, you have her off center, and then, you know, this wall just has enough detail in it that it gives you some sort of story, some type of context. But the framing is really beautiful. The details of how there's just enough space beneath her feet down here. Look how it matches up with the space above her head up there. You know, like, this is really thoughtfully composed, and I appreciate what you've put into the detail of this photo. So that's in. This is kind of a fun, you know, the baseball bats in that, it's like some sort of can, some sort of jug. It's pretty cool with the, you know, the hay bale. It's not what I typically see baseballs in, but I like that it's a little unexpected that way. Your depth of field is great, where, you know, there's clearly a context, a background for it, but it's not distracting. You know, it's nice and sharp. For, you know, in the technical aspects, your focus is good. This is a little bit light. I feel like that's kind of grabbing some attention here because it's so bright. I think this is the more interesting part of the image, and this is kind of pulling me out of it a little bit. You know, you might want to kind of work on that, bring the exposure of that down. But otherwise, I think this is nicely seen. Nice a little detail. That's in. Okay, so first of all, I've got to say I'm a little bit envious. I have not photographed Shiprock, and I think it is a really cool location. And it's a beautiful scene. I like the way that you've got a bit of a leading line coming into the formation here, and that I don't even know if it's a road. I can think it's a dirt road that goes up to it, and then the part of the ridge that leads into it, and then the main rock formation is off center, which is a nice detail. It looks like you've got an interesting sky, interesting clouds happening. What's distracting me a little bit, and I like the sepia tone too, but it looks like you've got sort of halo around the rock itself, left over from the processing. I think, if you can watch that sort of remnant of your processing, that's kind of distracting my eye a bit and taking me out of the scene itself. So I would just pay attention to not going overboard with those adjustments, when it comes to the sky and the foreground, but because it otherwise is a really, really cool picture. I'll say that's in, though. We have some roses here tonight. This is very pretty. It's, I think.
Bob, you got the
is this? I thought so. I thought I saw it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I remember this. I remember this shape going that way. So yes, thank you. I thought that was the case. Yeah, this is it's a pretty subject. It's lit well. The light is nice and soft. You've got that completely non-distracting background. Again, it's another really classic sort of image, and I think you've handled it well. Your sharpness and your detail look really nice. The exposure looks really good. I don't have a lot to suggest to do differently. I just do think this is a very, we've seen a lot of pictures like this. So, think about ways moving forward that you can, be even more creative with it and push a little bit beyond, what we've seen a lot. I think this is nice, though. So that's in. This is another really nice rendition of, a familiar subject that we've probably all photographed, but I think you've really done a great job of separating it from the background with your depth of field. There's nice definition in the flower itself, and you've got that, the lily pads behind it just have just enough information that they don't get really distracting. I think you could darken the background a little bit. In fact, I would say that maybe overall this is ever so slightly overexposed, because I think we're losing some detail in the highlights in some of these spots and the petals there. So again, I'd say, be careful of that. It's a very symmetrical composition. You've got the subject dead center, but I think the focus is so much on the symmetry, and it's really helped by the shape of that lily pad that's right behind it. That, I think, that helps it in this case. But I think, the fact that you've got one down here but not over here sort of helps your brain realize that it's not manipulated to be symmetrical. It's naturally that way, and I think that's a helpful thing. So I think this is nice. Just watch those details of exposure. The sharpness looks good. I'll say that's in. Okay, this is really cool. I am very drawn to this photo. There's a mystery here. It's an unusual composition. And I like that a lot. When I was talking about, finding ways to look at things that are not the way we've always seen them, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where, it looks like there are people on a ride or a Ferris wheel of some sort. And at first, you see this big shape, and it's like, oh, there's a big dark circle in the picture. But then you realize, like, oh, there's this little flare of light coming through, and you can tell there's, people are sitting there, like, oh, okay. And then your eye goes up here. It's like, wait a minute, there are more people up there. And it's really, I think, a smart, off-kilter composition to have, that part of those people. It just gives you that indication that, more is going on here. And, just having the structure of the ride has a nice sort of geometric feel to it, too. So I think this is really beautifully done. That's in. So this is an interesting sort of geometric abstract, and I'm looking at it, I'm pretty sure that this is a photo that was duplicated and flipped along the horizon to kind of create this pattern, which is, I think, an interesting effect. I've done some things like that myself, making a pattern out of a photograph. And I think it's a nice effect. I think this was a good subject for it. There's some nice movement. The shapes are cool. It creates a pleasing play of positive and negative space in it. So I think you've handled this well. Normally, like something that's made into a pattern would not be my first choice for like a photo competition, but I appreciate the creativity that went into this, and it does look like you've made a nice creative choice with it. So I'll say that's in. So this is a really cool kind of image that I feel is I don't know what the processing was on this, and I feel like it may be intentionally, like, sort of overexposed, so to speak. But I think the effect works for what this is. And because if you probably can't see behind me, but there's an interesting sort of play where, in the shape of the trunk and the branches, it kind of creates this pattern within it that I think is pretty interesting and compelling. It does draw your eye in, and I like the fact that you've chosen this really strong diagonal composition. It's very active. It feels, it's organic, but it's also got some interesting movement to it. So I think this is well seen, and it wouldn't have been my first choice of processing, but I think it's interesting and well done. So that's in. So this does look like kind of, adventure in the water. Like maybe she's not having the easiest time working with that board. So you've got a great gesture there, and I like the way that you've included just enough water around the subject that there's a very clear sense of where she is, and that she's not like in danger, but it definitely feels. There's so much water there, it feels like it really might be overwhelming her. So I think this is where you can make these creative choices where, the subject is, does she look a little overwhelmed? Maybe so. Maybe she'd look even more overwhelmed if she were smaller in the image, but then we might start to lose, the detail and the importance of her. So I think you've made a good choice there in your composition. Her expression is a little bit like she's sort of maybe not having the best time right now, and maybe that's what you intended to capture. So I think that, technically it's pretty solid. Your sharpness is pretty good considering, it's in motion. I kind of wish it were a different expression on her face, that she looked a little bit more, maybe with the eyes open or something. She looks a little, there might be another gesture there that could be even more, stronger. But I like the way you're looking and seeing to, get these moments. So I'll say that's out. So I noticed we've got a couple of, old capsized boats here. I hope that's not a recurring theme around here. But I think you've done a nice job on this as far as your exposure, your sharpness. Technically speaking, I think it's really well processed, well shot. There's, enough of the little background that you get a sense of place from it, I think, which is really helpful. and even, you know, the hills behind it, I like seeing the detail in the hills. It looks like this is a beautiful place. So there's a lot of information in the photo, but I think it's handled well. You know, there's nothing really getting in the way of you really seeing that the main subject is that capsized boat. So yeah, well done. That's in. Oh, I love this part of the world, and the trees out there really are just so interesting, and they have so much character. So I definitely get the appeal of, you know, a study of a tree. In this case, I would love to see either more or I'd kind of like to see more of the background, more landscape behind it. Maybe more as a horizontal, maybe placing the tree off center in the frame and including more of, you know, the land behind it. I'm not sure, that might not be the right answer, but I do feel like right now, you know, we're in this tree, and you've got a little clue back here, and I think I heard that this was at bear's ears, and I think that's one of the bear's ears, and I kind of want to see the other bear's ear. But the sky is beautiful. I think, you know, you've handled your detail, the exposure are really great, and I think, you know, we're seeing there's like a area over here where I feel like I just want to see more over here or less. Right now, this is pulling me out a little bit, and maybe there's a little too much sky up there. So I just kind of think about that composition a little bit more. Some things, you know, this feels very tight over here compared to how wide this is over here on the right. So there's just a little imbalance happening, which is a shame because I think the sharpness and the crispness is really beautiful, and the sky is lovely too. So keep working those compositions. So I'll say that's out. I know that street. It's a beautiful shot of downtown Annapolis without scaffolding, which is hard to see these days. Yeah, I like the street lights. You know, the dome looks pretty. The sky, I think, has some, you know, kind of seeing a little bit. I don't know whether, you know, you did a little work to darken the sky, and maybe there's a little bit of digital stuff. No, I think it's just maybe I've been looking at too much stuff today, but no, it looks nice there. No, it's a pretty scene. I feel like, you know, this could be. I kind of want to see this either dead center or more off center. So there's something a little bit unbalanced to me. Maybe if there were a little bit more over here on the left, but that's kind of nitpicking because I think it really is very nice. And a nighttime shot is not always easy, so you've handled the exposure well. I'll say that's in. Another really crisp architectural detail, and you've done a really nice job of, you know, keeping things very horizontal. I think it looks, from what I can tell, it looks very level, and that's, you know, that precision is really important when you're doing something like this that's so precise and architectural and you know, the geometry of it. So it's a really nice study of that geometry and pattern. Yeah, the sharpness, you know, your contrast all looks really nice. Trying to see if there's anything I would kind of suggest to do differently, but I do like it. I think it's well done. So that's in. So there's a lot of great texture in this. When you look at it up close, there's, I think, the contrast and the texture are really nice, the detail. The out of focus part over here with the leaf is a little distracting. I think you could maybe, crop in closer and eliminate some of that. Yeah, there's a point, about here where the subject goes out of focus as it gets closer. And really, to me, what's going on in here is the really interesting part of the image. I think you could really play with the cropping to do something even more interesting with the subject. But I think you're on a really good start here because there's some great things happening visually in this. I would just get a little bit closer with your crop and maybe a little bit more interesting to eliminate some of this and really get in on that texture. That would be my suggestion. So I'll say that's out. So we've got the emblem. It's a car emblem, but I think there's some sort of interesting processing going on in this one too. I can't quite figure out, but it looks like it's really, sort of sharp and straightforward in some parts of the emblem, and then over here it's really indistinct. And then there's a transition zone that looks like there was some filter or something added to part of the image, and it's kind of confusing me a little bit. And I like the creative attempt, and I like that you're seeing things differently, that you can look at a car emblem and see something different than what other people are seeing. I really appreciate that a lot. I'm just not sure that I'm connecting with whatever the processing is that's kind of created that little effect there. So I would, keep seeing differently, but maybe try some different processing. That's out. So this image has lots of really, really crunchy sort of texture in it, which I think is really ideal for the subject matter. It's a really busy photo, but it does give you sort of a mood, and it feels like fall or early winter. It's got that feel, and even the color, which is just slightly sepia tone, I think kind of enhances that effect. So I find myself kind of pulled into this image more than maybe my first glance would have led me to believe. It's why I really like, being able to look at something for a few minutes. This leaf here is the thing that kind of pulls me in, this little area here. And then my eye kind of goes outward from there. And it's compelling to me in a way that I wouldn't have guessed at first glance, because at first it's like, oh, wow, that's really busy. There's a lot of stuff happening. But sometimes if you handle it well, it can work that way. And I think you've handled it well here. Maybe I could suggest you could ever so slightly darken some of the periphery, maybe a little bit, just a slight subtle vignette around the edges of the photo to sort of, keep this part in here the main center of attraction. But otherwise, I think this is really cool and well done. So that's in. This is a really lovely botanical study, and at first glance, I thought that perhaps this was an image that had been, duplicated and mirrored, but I think the symmetry really is, it's organic, it's natural. As far as I can tell, it's, and if it's not, then I think it's been handled so well that bravo. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to, because there's another sort of leaf up here, but I don't see it over here. So I don't know about that. Maybe it has been mirrored and duplicated, but if so, I think you've done it so well that, fooled me. So, no, it's beautiful. The contrast is rather soft, but I think it suits the subject matter really well. There's some good clarity and focus on it, and the lines are really nice. So, well done. That's in. The other capsized boat. This one's seen some better days. I think you've handled this nicely. The processing on this works really well. The water and the sky are all a bit darker. The boat is a little bit lighter, so it stands out, but not glaringly so. There's great texture in there, from the texture in the water to the boat. And then the sky is just sort of that nice background player. There's a good sense of the place, and there's a mood. I think the mood comes through. So it's well done. I think maybe you could play with the composition a little bit more so the boat is not dead center in the image. That could make it a little bit stronger, but I think you've done this nicely. So that's in. And another rose, another flower. I like the dramatic light on this one, and I think that the focus is well handled. There's kind of a tight depth of field there, so not the whole flower isn't in focus, but it's a nice effect in this case. The light is really good. Once again, it's a really common subject matter. So, always be aware of ways that you can, see it or present it really differently. I think this could be a beautiful crop tighter in that would have a little more mystery to it if you want to go in that route. Something to consider, just to take it a step further. But it's really lovely. So it's in. It's a nice scene. Actually, it took me a moment of looking at it to realize that the people in here they're holding hands, and I like that little detail. It's a really nice gesture that I kind of wish I could see a little bit better in the photo. It's overall the main subject, the people here, they're well exposed. The water and everything is so bright that it's kind of, I realize that processing this has got to be hard because they're in the shade and everything else is bright and sunny. So this is a challenging picture to make, and I can appreciate that. I like the way you're seeing it, though. I wish this weren't so terribly, terribly bright back here, because that's a nice moment that you captured, and it's really good seeing. But that's out. This has a really nice effect, and there's a great mood to it, but there's also like a level of abstraction that I can really appreciate, and pattern. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of movement in it, but there's the prevailing shape in here, the prevailing lines are consistent, which really gives you, a nice sense of structure, even in chaos. The depth of field is really nice. I like that it's got enough contrast, but not too much. It's a lovely picture. That's in.
How many ends do we have?
I don't know, it's a bunch.
Oh, a bunch.
We'll just run through one more time.
Right. There's probably too many to spread.
So this one we got
We're looking for
four and then three.
Three. Okay, this is a straight in out.
In. In. Out. In. In. Out. Out.
It's the wrong way, it's the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the one. In. Out. In. Out. In. In. Out. Out. In. In. Out. Out. In.
So want to go through it again?
Yeah, we'll go through again. I don't know if we can spread them all out.
Oh, you don't want to go through it, okay.
Yeah.
So, right.
It's always easier.
Hold that one.
And I can't dispute it.
This one, and there's one more to
I thought that was sexually suggestive.
There we go.
Sexy building.
Right, so let's eliminate 4.
Right.
Okay.
And the sad thing is I can't dispute it.
Take out that one.
And if, let's say next week's digital contest, we get another one, then I may be permanently, but I can't. It's automatically a strike. The building with the reflections was too sexy for Facebook.
Yeah.
That was sexual.
That one's been in enough times, but it's probably been in 2 times, so it might not be allowed.
Oh, but if anyone else puts something in.
Something similar, yeah.
But they won't let you dispute it, so.
We'll take out that one.
Hey, maybe you're not zooming in far enough. Maybe there is something going on in those reflections.
Where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're taking out 2.
I do still in, so.
Take out this.
Oh, silly.
I always end up being afraid when
Okay.
I will have to wiggle it while we.
Thank you, Monique.
Yeah.
You should send them a message. That's not porn, this is porn.
They don't even reference the context of the muscle camera shot? What? I said they didn't even reference the context of where the picture.
No, their algorithm says it's bad image. Their algorithm can't be wrong. The last time we had this happen,
It was nice meeting your husband, Monique.
last time we
He is
had this
nice.
happen, we were using Brian Clinton's music as
His
background
jacket.
music. And they slammed it, shut us down because we were stealing copyrighted music.
It was cold. The artist was in the.
I didn't bring enough jacket.
I really enjoyed being there.
We'd written permission to use it. It was cold. That was
This is the first time I ever took pictures with my long lens.
See.
And these are.
And every picture was in
He was very excited.
That's fabulous.
I had this little thing that goes on the top, so you don't look through the lens, you actually look through this little thing.
Read the title and the author, consistent sequence, so I can hear you.
These are each other. All right. Monochrome Unlimited. Honorable mention, Elegant Beauty, Mike Thomas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know Mike is over here. Want to talk about it?
It's just a leftover flower shot from our theme of flowers last month. Tried to get an angle on it and do a nice conversion. It's natural light from the window.
What color was it?
It was probably red or pink. You're asking the colorblind guy.
Honorable mention, Walking in the Woods, Ron Pfeiffer.
That one is, actually, I have an infrared converted camera, and sometimes it gets crappy work, and sometimes this one, it works. This one I liked.
Honorable mention, Bob Weber, Love Gray Symmetry. It is actually a flip. Right. The original was in color and didn't do so well. Fourth place, Church Reflections, Edna Henke.
That was reflections of a church through a window. It was great structure.
Okay.
What city?
Florida.
John wants to say something about that image. Ed got us in trouble.
Don't hold that up too much, Bob. This photo here, Facebook thought was sexual content or adult nudity. Mike has a good idea. Maybe there's somebody in one of those windows doing something they shouldn't. So, but I thought it would be interesting that that's too sexy for Facebook, Ed. Just letting you know.
That was our first strike, and we don't I'll get a PL.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ed.
So much for algorithms. Third place, Fred Venetia, Miss Rosita.
That was shot with one speed light. It's at the Naval Academy. I just told her to stand in front of that thing, and she's a professional. All I had to do was just press the button.
Second place, Jackie Colstock, Plumes of Grass. First place, Christine Millikus, Silhouette Star.
This was at the Early Heights Carnival that takes place down here every year, and I love silhouettes, so I got behind it, got the sun peeking through that made the little star there, and I just love silhouettes, and I thought it was an interesting composition, which not everyone has appreciated.
Okay, that's black and white for the evening, and now on to color, and we're looking at novice, Bob, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, I can fiddle these around if you want to.
Okay, right.
These over
These
here.
are the winners, and these are monochromes. Right.
I'll go faster.
Got it?
I was wondering if the lines weren't out of the critiques.
Yeah, we are.
Tell me to move along if I'm bad.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Is it okay?
I can move it.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, you're up in here anyway.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong. Oh, where are we? There we go.
Looks like it's,
He's gonna do it.
yeah. Yeah.
There we go. A little bit more?
There's a delay.
Is that helping any or making
Oh,
it
here.
worse?
Oh, I am on the wrong camera. There we go. Try that.
Camera B. There we go.
All right, color prints. Novice. And we have 10 of them. Biked. Seattle Shadow. Change. Barred owl. Fire and ice. Puddle. And it is the right way round. Windmills on a dull day. Wallflowers. Oil and water. Cliffs at Zion. Yeah. That's it.
1 through 4 and 1 honorable.
Yep, one honorable, yeah.
So I think this is a nice scene. I think it looks like it's a beach with the bike. I think that somebody's seen this well as far as like there could be a really nice color story happening here. It looks like the bike is red, and it looks like there's the red and white barrier here. And I think, you know, you're onto something with that combination. And I would like to see more of that relationship. The processing is a little bit unusual. So I'm not sure what's, you know, it's kind of indistinct back here. I'm not sure what's happening with, you know, the effect that's going on. But I feel like, you know, the right side of the image is really not adding anything to it. I feel like what we really want to be looking at is something in this part of the image here. And there's some visual relationship with that bike and that barrier that I think you're getting onto, but you haven't quite found the composition yet that really makes those two subjects, you know, work really well together. So I think you're onto something here, but I would keep pushing it and keep looking at those objects and decide, you know, there's a color thing happening. How do you want to explore that? The shape of the bicycle and the forms and the barrier. So I like where you're starting to go with this. I think you just need to keep working with your composition, and maybe the processing is a little heavy-handed. So, you know, I'd watch out that you don't get too distracting with that. So I'll say that's out. This image seems deceptively simple, but I think the shadow in this really does make a nice form. There's a nice geometry here. It's very, very precise, and it's got this, you know, very sunny, happy feeling, which I think that the title had something to do with, was it Seattle? Which is not the typical thing for Seattle.
Seattle shadow.
Yeah. So, but you know, I think you've got nice detail happening even in the shadow, which is interesting. There's just a neat sort of mood to it, even though it just seems like a very simple image. There are some interesting things happening in it with it. So I do like that. That's in. Another photo that I think, is this the right way up? Was that
Well,
was that the proper?
this way, but the
I think you
text
showed
is
it
the other way.
I think you showed it the other way before.
Well,
I just want to make sure I'm looking at it the right way.
We'll do it the way we showed it first.
Okay. Yeah, this is the kind of picture you really could look at, you know, any way around, and it can work. Another one that you know, it seems deceptively simple. It's, you know, very, very centered. But I like that you've chosen to use an angle. You know, the leaf is coming in at an angle. It's touching the frame on one side, but not all of them. It gives a little bit of tension to the image. So I think that's, you know, pretty successful. We've all seen a lot of pictures of fall leaves. So it's, you know, again, trying to find a way to make them a little bit more unique to your vision is always a challenge. I can see you're working on that here. I think maybe even a little bit darker sky could help if you want to kind of take the exposure down a little bit for a little more saturation in the sky. It'll really make the color, you know, that contrast between the orange and the blue can be a very strong thing. So you might think about that. Yeah, I think, you know, you're getting somewhere with this. I think that you're using some good tools, you know, of composition, but I think you can go even further if you keep, you know, pushing. But that's in. There's really nice definition in the owl's feathers, the talons. It's really beautiful. The eye has nice catch light in them, which is not always easy to do with wildlife. The background, it's nice that there's, the background is more indistinct. I think you could maybe even take down the highlights a little bit to, have the bird stand out even more. And I like too that you've got, it just happens to have, a nice diagonal framing, and those branches on either side of the owl. So that's well seen and well composed. Really beautiful. That's in. Oh, the light in this is so pretty. There's nice reflection happening on the ice from the sky. I'm seeing an issue with the quality. I'm not sure whether this picture was blown up a little bit more than what the resolution could handle. There's some artifacts along the edge of the mountain that make me wonder if that's the case, if it was enlarged too much. And maybe, this ice in the foreground looks a bit out of focus. Maybe cropping some off of the bottom could help, and maybe printing it a little smaller might help with that image quality issue that I'm seeing up there. So, pay attention to maybe things like that. Maybe this is a little overexposed up in here, but it's a lovely scene, and I think you're really getting somewhere with it. Just keep an eye on those technical details. So I'll say that's out. I think this is really well seen and well framed. My instinct is to kind of turn it upside down and see the tree right side up. But the rock really makes a great window for that very clean reflection. I think if you wanted to enhance that even more, I would take down the exposure of the rock around it. I would darken all of that a little bit. It'll just make that frame even more pronounced around it. But I think this is really cool. You've seen it well, and you've handled it well. The sharpness, particularly in the reflection, looks really good. So that's in. I was just in Amsterdam and out in the riding bikes through, what's the area called? Kinderdijk, just a few months ago. So I like seeing this image of the windmills. It makes me think about that. So I have a happy reaction to this picture, just on a personal level, if you'd like to know that. And I love, the line of them going back. I like, you've included this foreground. It seems maybe a little bit, you could have taken the exposure down a little bit. There's a lot of empty sky here that if the sky were a bit more, dramatic, added some contrast to it, I think it could make it even more interesting. That would be my main suggestion, because it's a nice scene and you've handled all the other details really well. So I'll say that's in. This is an interesting selection. It feels, this might sound odd, but this feels to me like an album cover. There's something about the way this is shot that's got these really strong shadows against a wall, I guess, or a table where the flowers are sitting, or they're up against a wall, one or the other. And there's something about the color palette and that strong shadow and the slight graininess of it that makes me think of like a Polaroid picture being used for an album cover. And for I used to be a graphic designer, so my mind is always thinking about ways that images can be used. So, for whatever reason, that's where my mind goes with this, which is kind of a good thing, because it's unusual and it does capture my attention in a unique way. it might not be everybody's first choice of a competition, winning image, but I think that it's got an interesting quality to it that I appreciate seeing. I think you could maybe crop something off of the bottom. That little flower down there is a little distracting to me, maybe, or maybe you could edit that out a little bit because I like that this shape is complete over here. But otherwise, I like that you've got space around the other flowers. I think you could even have a little bit more space. I'd kind of like to see this in a square format. I think maybe because of the album cover thing. But it's interesting, and I like that you're taking a chance and doing something a little bit different. So that's in. Was that oriented another way? I thought that was up and down.
That one goes that way.
Okay. Yeah, I've been seeing some of these sort of oil and water images lately, and they are really interesting and compelling. They make really cool patterns. I think you've handled this nicely. It's the color palette is pleasing. It's not terribly jarring or anything. I think that's a nice combination. I think you could maybe bring out a little bit more blue on the one side to contrast a little bit more with the green bubbles, just for a little more balance, because I see the blue over here. But I think this is really fun, and it's got a nice sense of movement. You're going down through it on a diagonal, and I like that, you've got these complete circles here, but, where you're coming in, I think the composition's nice, and I like it as a vertical, not a horizontal, too. So, well done. That's in. And Zion, I love Zion. And it's such a beautiful place. There are so many great pictures there. I think that you've done a really nice job in capturing this wall right here with that desert varnish and the scrapes and the rock. That's a really compelling texture right in here. I like that part of the image a lot. There's a lot of sky here, a lot of empty sky that's not adding a lot. This part of the image on the left upper part is not as compelling. I think you could crop this pretty strongly and really emphasize the attention on what's happening here. I think this right here is a really cool part of the image, and just give enough, context in the background, maybe darkening some of that, a little bit more contrast to it. But I feel like this here is the point that I would like to see more emphasis on in the picture. So you're on a really good track here. I think, the sharpness and all is really nice, but I would kind of work the composition a bit more, maybe eliminate the sky altogether. So I'll say that's out.
Want to lay them out?
Okay, yeah. Five. Honorable and 4.
4 and 1 honorable.
To add insult to injury, they claim the music from our intro, which is completely public domain. UMG claimed it for being Metallica's Symphony of Destruction. To add insult to injury, they delete the video. Hey? Oh yeah, I just disputed it again.
5 out of.
Someone's determined to take our video
we have to
down.
eliminate
Jesus.
Okay.
So you need to eliminate 2. Just. A second. Oops. And this is honorable mention. That's on the right. Okay. Novice color, honorable mention, Catherine Rush, Seattle Shadow.
It was in Discovery Park, a very bright Seattle early morning, and super strong shadows, and a perfectly blue sky.
Fourth place, Sarah Derrick Wallflower.
Thank you. I took that in my room and I did a little bit of edits in Photoshop and I liked how it turned out. I brightened up the carnations.
Very good.
Were they vertical against the wall or were they flat?
They were vertical.
Third place, Oil and Water, Monique.
This was taken on a glass plate with my iPad underneath, and then obviously the glass bowl with the water and oil drops in it. It's quite fun to do. The things you do in COVID time.
Second place, Doug Wood, Puddle. And he puts a cheeky little note on the back. I don't know if you can see it. Right. To make sure it gets the correct way. And first place, Monique Bardow.
And then I'll read Doug's response.
This was taken in Shenandoah Park. He literally I just came out of the shower in the cabin and he just landed right there next to the cabin. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Lucky.
Great luck.
Doug says that this was taken at Hanging Rock State Park. It's in central North Carolina. I go several times a year. I'd actually submitted it previously upside down and no one knew what it was.
Upside down.
Oh, yeah. I like it upside down.
Yeah, I do too. I like it both
It
ways.
looks like you're coming up from a cave from
Yes.
looking out in.
Yeah, I agree. I like it that way. That's sometimes the beautiful thing is when a photo can be appreciated, turned in different ways.
Which way? Right.
Okay, home stretch.
Home stretch.
How many of these are there?
And there are about 34. So that's
Okay.
first through
I'll try not
fourth
to be
and
too
three
wordy.
honorable mentions. And here's the first one, Raising the Dome. Just watch me walk away. Airborne motocross. Waiting. First Frost digital painting, all original. Hummingbird afternoon.
Cypress?
Charlie.
No, that is right. Yeah, for once. Permission to land on Bud 224. Eagle picture taking. Excuse me, right. Mandate nature. Eagle 1. Leafs. Blue and gold. Hot air balloons. Dancing petals. Sinister night shadows. Don't look back. No one to save. Pink and orange. Nyman's flower. Colorful autumn pathway. Yellow tiger lily. Starring bird. Morning light. Desert trail. Lonely in blue. Museum reflection. Mining bee and pollen. Downtown sailing. Pipes. Mr. Foster. Footprint in the sand. Jewelry and shells. Waiting in love. Hello, lunch. Okay, that's it.
Okay. So again, we're looking at 3 honorables.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 4, 5, 6, 7. Got it?
Yep, yep,
How
yep.
many did you say there were altogether? 34.
34.
Yeah,
So 3 honorables.
that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first I want to say you all have made my work hard tonight because there's lots of great work here. And it's also really a pleasure, I think I said earlier, to see prints. I haven't been looking at prints so much lately, so this has been a real pleasure. Thank you. All right, so I think this is a nice sort of, environmental architectural detail as far as like, something happening to the structure. And there's a nice contrast in color and form here. You've got, the sort of, ornate architectural contrasted with, the industrial. And it's a nice contrast. I think I might suggest taking the dome part of the image more off-center, and giving a little bit more room to this side of the image as well, to sort of create more. Right now it feels like the dome is pretty centered and like the crane is a bit more of an afterthought. I think a composition that includes a bit more might emphasize the relationship between those two subjects a bit more. So I think you're seeing well. I just encourage you to think more about the composition and maybe putting things in a little bit different place for an even more successful picture. But otherwise, I think your details look really nice. So that's out. Bless you.
Thank you.
There's really nice detail in the eye and the top part of this little guy. I think it's so hard, capturing really good detail in a macro shot like that. I am seeing some, I think it's just like artifacts of maybe noise in the picture, maybe a little bit more, anti-noise processing in Photoshop or Lightroom or what have you might help take some of that away. And you might, when it's something this close and this, every little thing shows, I might think about going in and, just touching up some of these little details in here that just kind of looks like they look like little flaws on the leaf or what have you. But so you're this close, and it's just like this color plane. You really want it to be, all that emphasis to be on the bug itself. But the colors are really interesting. They're very bright, like real saturated, perhaps maybe a touch too saturated. You might want to dial that back a little bit. It might help some of this posterization that's going on over here too, on the right-hand side of the image. So, watching those details in processing, but, it's well seen and a challenging subject, and I think you've done a nice job of it. But I'll say this out. So this is a well-done action shot. I love how much air you got under the bicyclist. The treetops here, the indistinct treetops are a really great thing to leave in the frame to give that sensation of, a lot of height. That's a really smart composition choice. I don't know whether this is a scratch in the print or there's some little flaw there. I don't know what that is, whether it's in the picture or not. I won't touch it to find out. I think you've handled this really nicely. There's a sense of movement. The gesture is good. There's, nice open spaces, negative space in his body. I think, if you got him at a little bit more of an angle, it could be even more dynamic to see a little bit more from the side. But still, I think it's well done. The sky is a little bit washed out looking, but it also means that you have some nice separation between the subject and the sky. So that's sort of a judgment call. So well done. I'll say that's in. So I know this area too. I love the way that in this picture you've been very, very precise with your lines. This is really, your horizontal lines are very straight and even. I can tell that care was taken in this composition. I'm not reading a connection between the man and the bicycle. Which maybe is the point, that's not his bike, but, he just happens to be sitting there with it. It's sort of hard sometimes when, there's a person in an image who's not engaged with, something in the picture so much. It can be challenging to make the viewer, feel something like, okay, he's just waiting. He happens to be waiting in front of, I like the fruit and there's a lot of lettering. When you've got that much lettering in a picture, that's where your eye's going to go. And it keeps going up there rather than to the person. So, that's a challenging thing about street photography. So just think about that, in the future when you compose for these kinds of shots, because I think there's a lot of interesting elements here. It's just what you're choosing to emphasize. So, technically, I think it's a really solid picture, but I'll say out. Oh, sorry. This is a really pretty scene. It's very. It's a little on the small side. So I'm kind of looking to see the detail in it. It looks like it's perhaps been done with a little bit of an effect or sharpened a lot, and it's not unattractive. There's definitely an appeal to it. It's a little bit crunchy, sort of, for the subject matter, for my personal taste. But I like, this composition with the white tree here branching out, and it's kind of, surrounded by the foliage on either side is a nice choice to have that off center. There's a little bench in the background that's kind of drawing my attention a little bit. So watch those distracting elements in the background. But I think, you're onto a nice composition here. I keep working with that. There's also something horizontal down here, or diagonal down here. It's kind of taking me out a little bit too. But it's pretty. Just keep thinking about those details that might get in the way, might be a little distracting, and maybe the processing is a little bit touch heavy for my taste. So I'll say that's out. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I knock the camera? No. Okay. Knocked it with my foot. Apologies. Oh, hummingbirds are so pretty. I think you've captured this nicely. They move so fast. I know that they're challenging, but I think this is a pretty good sharpness and definition in the hummingbird and in the flower. The background is really nicely indistinct, so it just brings all the attention to the bird and its interaction with the plant. I like that you've included the whole leaf up here. It's, it could maybe even use a little bit more space. It does look like we should be looking at it from the side, but I know hummingbirds do, they feed at those angles too. No, this is nicely done. That's in. This is really fun. It's very mysterious. I guess this was an insect photographed with I'm not sure what exactly. And it looks like there was some sort of filter applied to it. It's really psychedelic. It's really creative, and that's a lot of fun. I appreciate the effort in it and the creative mind. I'm not sure it's my choice for a photo competition, but it's really fun, and I just want to encourage you to keep going with it because that's just somebody wants to buy that and hang that on their wall. I guarantee you. But for me, it's out for this competition, but it's really pretty cool. So yeah, the photograph of all the photographers. How many times have we seen this kind of scene? Yeah, this is a good job of seeing the opportunity. When everybody else has got a camera turned in one direction, it's great to turn in another direction. So I applaud you for doing that. I would say that this would be stronger if we've got this railing in the foreground that's really distracting here. I would get rid of anything like that. And a lot of the photograph is sort of the empty space out here. And there's, a lot going, everything, the action is down here in this corner. And I know you're trying to show the dam as well. So it's a challenging place to get, a really pleasing composition out of that. And I'm not sure it succeeds for me from that perspective, but I do like that you're, looking in a different spot than where everybody else has their camera aimed. Just keep, working on the compositional aspect, because I think your clarity and your exposure is nice. Maybe, concentrate more on, if you're going to shoot the people, look for the interactions and the relationships between them, and maybe try on that angle instead. So that's out. Another really creative effort. I like the message of this, and I think you've also rendered it well. It's an interesting image, and it does make you think. And I like your choice of just the really, really simple background. I feel like this is really editorial. I could see somebody using this for an ad or illustrating an article in a magazine. It's, I think sometimes thinking about these uses of images, usage of images can really, help you pursue new creative ideas, and you've done a nice job with this, with thinking of ways to arrange things that tell a story or make a statement. So yeah, well done. That's in. This is really beautifully captured. That eagle is so sharp and really just beautiful. The form of the wings is nice. I mean, your timing was really great with this. I love, how the head is, cleanly separated from the rest of the wing. You've got, good positive and negative space there. He's holding on to that fish. It's, pretty crazy. And then the background is, nice and blurred, so the bird really stands out. I think you could maybe even darken the rest of this background a little bit, but I think that's kind of nitpicking. I think this is, really beautifully done from a technical standpoint, and I like it a lot. That's in. This is another image that struck me very much as something I could see illustrating a story in a magazine spread. There's just a really, this is organized chaos to me. There's something about it where, you've got this main form here, and then you've got these two supporting, leaves, and then everything else is sort of arranged around it. It feels very framed in a good way. It doesn't seem contrived. It seems like it really could have been just sitting there like this. And your processing is great. The sharpness and clarity is really beautiful. The color palette is very fall and pleasing, and I think you've done a lovely job of this. So that's in. Oh, more birds. I love the birds. Another nicely done bird portrait. I think technically it looks really good. I think the sharpness and everything are nice. The background's a little busy, but it is out of focus, so I don't find it too terribly distracting. You could always take down the contrast a little bit to mute the background a little bit more, but it also gives you a sense of the place in this particular instance. So I think this is well done. I think you could maybe crop in a little bit from the right-hand side or from the top, but that's a judgment call. So well done. That's in. And balloons are such a great subject. I like how you've exposed this so that sky still has definition in it. There's still, you can see the clouds, that blue against the orange tones in the balloons is really beautiful. That's a great, color contrast that I love about that time of night, and about the glow of these balloon forms. I can see a little bit of detail in the bottom of the frame. Perhaps you could crop some out of the bottom. There's, some sort of indistinct forms of people down there that I'm not sure they're adding anything to it. You could even darken the bottom and take some of that out. But I think you've done a nice job of capturing this. It's a nice scene. So that's in. I like the choice to crop very tight in on a botanical subject like this. It sort of gives it a little bit more stylized feel, especially with the white background. Again, this is, the kind of thing that I could see used for, in, graphic design terms, book covers and things like that. There's, white space over here for a title or something of that sort. So, there are uses for this kind of image for sure. I do wish that more of the flower were in focus. Oops, I'm not getting a little pointer thing. We'll try this one. Some of these petals in the foreground are a little soft, and I think when you're getting this graphic with it, you really want it to be as sharp as possible. But I like, the way that you're seeing it. So I'll say this one's out. Another interesting case of sort of duplicating and mirroring an image that made a really cool pattern. I like the pattern that this makes a lot. It's fascinating. I would consider maybe cropping off some of the top of the image, because I feel like the top starts to kind of get a little too obvious up there what the subject is, and I like how abstract it is in here. It looks more like a mosaic. And I think you could also, duplicate and flip it again and make like sort of a whole round, like a mandala sort of feel out of the whole form. That could be a cool thing to do. Yeah, really an interesting creative approach. I like that. For me, I'm not sure that this is, a photo competition winner, but I like the creativity, and I like, what you're doing with the image to create a new thing, to create a pattern. So I'll say that one's out. Another good action shot. Yeah, that the guy on the ground looks like he is about to perhaps get his butt kicked, if he didn't already. And I think it's a really strong, gesture where you can see that dirt flying up. He's scuffing up dirt over here too. The way he seems to be looking away, but that he is just looking right at him. And I like the detail that he's got a cross hanging from his neck. That's a really nice little detail that's captured in the picture. That just one of those lucky things that I think it was great to get that in. I don't think I'd suggest anything really more with that. I mean, maybe that bar back there is not directly horizontal. That might be a little distracting, but that's kind of a judgment call. So that's well done. That's in. So there's a nice, sort of like easy, happy kind of mood to this. The beach is just, who isn't happy looking at a picture of the beach? So I really appreciate, a kind of a bright, sunny picture once we're, as we're getting into the winter. I think, technically the sharpness and your exposure and all of that are good. I just think that maybe the choice of subject, I wish that there were a little bit more going on with the lifeguard. We get a little hint of them up there, but there's not really, they're not interacting with anything. We see more of like a towel and a backpack and all than we do the lifeguard. And, I kind of want to see a little bit more either, action on a part of the person or a more graphic interest. Like say if this red were more strongly repeated in like the towel and the backpack and then something else down here, then you've got more of a really consistent color story that's running through it. Then it can be more interesting on a graphic level. So that would be, my suggestions for what would perhaps work a little bit better to create a more dynamic picture out of something like this. But I can see you're working on that. So this one's out. This is an interesting color sort of contrast, the pink and orange. And I can't tell what the orange part actually is, but there's an interesting sort of vibration that goes on with those two colors that not everybody would find appealing, but I can appreciate. That's got a certain sort of edge and a certain sort of mood to it that can be really compelling for, like certain moods and certain people and certain uses. And I think this is really well seen. I think, that combination is creative. And I like the use of the square format. And I like the way that the orange is sort of, interspersed all around in the image. That's pretty cool too. Again, I'd watch that little corner. That little tiny corner is a little distracting. But it's interesting. I like the different way of seeing. So I'll say that's in. Dahlias are also really, they're great subjects. They're so sculptural, and I think you've captured that aspect of this really nicely. I like the fact that you've chosen to fill the frame with it, without any background. It looks well exposed, and it looks pretty sharp. There's something really beautiful about the tones on the right side of the image over here in particular. That pastel over there is just really beautiful. You might even think about, doing a crop that just concentrates on one part of the image for something even more, abstract, even more different. But this is nicely done. That's in. The colors in this are really brilliant. For a fall picture, it's got a nice mood to it. It does look like, I don't know if there's some filter applied to it. The people look like they're a little, posterized, or so I'm not real big on that kind of effect. And I think it would also, from a compositional standpoint, I think, maybe if it would be more compelling if it were just two people on the path and not a cluster behind them. It gets a little crowded looking right in the middle. I would also try to avoid placing the people so close to dead center and have them a little bit, more, kind of a third of the way up in the frame, just to kind of keep away from that dead centered sort of composition. So, I like, what you're seeing here. Just, work on those details. So this one's out. Another really lovely flower portrait. I love that the background is so simple, and it really makes the flower look like it's glowing. The detail is very, very nice. It's nice and sharp, even in the water drops. That kind of clarity is really appreciated. Nicely composed, nicely exposed. That one's in. This is so striking. Just for that stare alone and the posture of the bird, I really like that aspect of it a lot. I like the framing and the composition of it. What's bothering me is up in the top of the head. I don't know how well anybody can see it, and maybe in the eyeball too. There's this weird posterization where there's a bunch of artifacts, like these colors going on up there that are not really in the bird, that definitely sort of distract my eye, and that's a shame, because other than that, I think this is a really lovely picture. So I'm going to say no to that one. Nice scene, really beautiful. The light is pretty. There's a lot of water and there's a lot of sky. And I think maybe you might want to think about cropping it into something that's more of almost a panoramic, a really strong horizontal composition. Even though that sky is pretty, up here, at the very least, I would say you could, lose some of the water and make it a little bit stronger. The building over here, I think, is a nice touch. I would, think about a composition that maybe takes more advantage of that as a punctuation point, because it's a little bit off to the side, almost a little bit afterthought-ish there. So that one's out. I like in this one the way that the yellow plants kind of, travel up along with the path up the hill. The hiker is almost out of the frame or almost out of the line of sight, which is an interesting choice. The clarity is really nice. The color's nice. I think you could have included a little bit more at the top so you see the top of the bush. The hiker looks a little bit, I kind of wish you saw the form of the hiker a little bit more. I hate to have people pose, but maybe like having them stop and, sort of open up their posture a little bit might create a little bit more compelling a picture. Just some ideas. So I'll say this one's out. So with this one, there's a lot of space around the subject, but it's mostly off to the side, and it seems so close to the bottom here. It feels very tight, down here. It feels like I want to see it opened up at the bottom. I feel like the white background doesn't quite fit the mood of the flower somehow. There's a little disconnect for me between, between the mood of the flower and then that really stark white background. And I think that's what's bothering my eye about it, even though technically I think you've lit it well and it's nice and sharp. But I feel like the mood is sort of not, doesn't quite fit for me. So I'll say that one's out. I like the fact that you're seeing this, these reflections, and also, the scene above it. It's almost like a couple different pictures put together, and that's an interesting effect. I think, again, I would say it's so close to being very symmetrical. Your line here is a little bit crooked, going up to one side, and this line is off center slightly. I think with something like this, you want to make it either perfectly square or you want to throw it more off center, one or the other. But it's really creative, and I like that you're seeing this. I would just, kind of watch those details a little bit more for more precision when you're doing something with those strong vertical and horizontal lines. So that one's out. Wow, another really great macro of the insect world. The colors in this are really great. The detail in the main part of the bee is really good. I like the composition. Yeah, I think this is really well done. I don't know that I would change anything about it. Yeah, that's in. I like that you've chosen to frame the boat in between two pilings. Let's see, I'm trying to decide I feel like you could have maybe brought the composition. I know some of these things are hard to do because you're probably on a dock taking this picture. But it would have been really cool to see that full reflection of the sail in the water, and maybe less of what's up here. That might have created a stronger sort of graphic element in the picture. Because right now, this boat itself is, again, very dead center, and I like that it's centered between those pilings, but maybe it's a little bit flat, just dead center in there with maybe too much room up here and not enough down here. I would just, again, play with those compositions and see if there's something that brings a little bit more interest and dynamic nature to it. You know, finish up that reflection, that form, because that triangle form is nice and it echoes these triangles on the pilings. So play with that some more. So I'll say that one's out. Another nice portrait. Yeah, I think, you know, your detail in the main subject is really good. The sharpness and the, you know, the exposure is good. I like that you can see a bit of the other musicians in the background, but I feel like maybe, I wish we saw a little bit more of her bagpipes. I feel like she's falling off the frame a little bit, and we're seeing maybe a little too much of this guy. So framing-wise, I would have a little more emphasis on her and complete more of her form in the back and in her bagpipes, and maybe not so much information on the left side of the frame. So I'll say that one's out. This is a really nice portrait, very professional. You know, good job getting the catch lights in the eyes. The lighting looks really nice and professionally done. The color palette is really pleasing as far as, you know, like his coloring works really well with his shirt. The background, really simple. I think it's a really nice portrait. So yeah, that's in. Well done. So the footprint in the sand, you know, I think this is really creatively done and seen, because a lot of times when I see sand dunes, I'm avoiding the footprints. So I applaud the practice of looking at the footprint and then seeing something in it and really, you know, going for it. And I think, you know, what's happened here is that the contrast has been increased to really bring out the pattern in that footprint and in the sand dune. And I think it's an interesting result. And I think it's pretty effective because it creates a real graphically interesting picture. So yeah, that's in. Still lifes are so challenging to put together, I think, and I think you've done a pretty nice job of it here. The reflection is handled well. I think lighting these things is always hard, and it might be just a little bit. I think, you know, the lighting might be just a little bit hot. I'm seeing, you know, some blown out highlights in the jewelry, and maybe even on the right side over here, the shell. But the subject is pretty. It's very challenging to arrange these things. Think about shapes that you're making with the objects when you're arranging a still life like this, and maybe a composition that has a bit more of a triangle feel to it, because right now we sort of got higher on the edges and then lower in the middle, and it creates a little bit of a valley, and the more prominent parts are pushed off to the sides. So I would think about that in the future when composing these, but I see where you're going with it, and I think it's a nice attempt. Keep at it, but I'll say that one's out. And this is really beautiful. Again, I love birds. I love seeing this. You know, the color is really, really striking. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure that it's a time of day when, you know, that blue is just like enhanced and it makes it look cold. The framing is really nice. I love the way that the branches around the birds, some of them are distinct and some of them are more blurred, but it works well with the birds. And I like that they're off center in it. It's just really beautiful. So that one's in. Yay, birds. Okay. Last one. Oh, it's such a great moment. You've really got great timing to get that fish so well positioned, right there in the bird's mouth. I think that's so well captured in terms of the timing. It does look like, I don't know, maybe maybe the image was not super high resolution, or it's either that or maybe an effect, a painting effect or something was put on it. I'm not sure which is the case. That it takes me out of it a little bit. I kind of wish I were just seeing the shot, straight. But if, it might be a compensating for an image quality issue, maybe a camera that couldn't quite handle being zoomed in that much or something. But the moment itself is really good. So I do applaud that, and I like the composition too. But I'll say that's out.
Okay. Real quick.
There we go.
On the table.
Oh, we can put them on the table, I think.
17 of them left.
We got 17.
Probably need to do a run through.
Run through?
yeah,
Okay, we'll run through.
because
Okay.
Trying to lay that number out.
Okay.
Flip it.
Right.
In. In. Out. In. 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 Out. In. Out. Out. In. In. Out. In. In. Oh, that goes down to 10? Okay, yeah. So we're taking 3 out. Take that out. Take this out.
I can probably do this, yes. I might have to be January, I might be out of town. Like a Monday.
Where did the pen go? Oh,
So we can't assume I'll be able to go to the Christmas party.
Yeah, that's on the 20th.
Standing in the way there.
So how are you enjoying the Cabinet Club?
For my third year, I take thumbs up.
It's really, all really good stuff.
One? I did, yeah, I did get a number of them. First year, I didn't win any. The first year.
It's all subjective. So I threw my neighbor in the last round. So
this is full. Yeah, the great channels.
remember which folder I put them on. With the sticker on What I did.
Thank you.
Usually when I learned the sheet, put it on sticker.
Yeah, these
Well, she took a photo. Oh, I don't know.
I think I got one of the others. I think I missed one of them anyway. Okay, what's the one below that?
Don't look back.
second chair.
I got that. Well, you've got all the, you're gonna get them down, right?
I'm going to get him when he announces him.
I've got it.
All right. Unlimited color. Honorable mention, Tiger Lily, Fred Venetia.
That was shot with two speed lights and a 7-inch reflector with a 30-degree grid and a 10-degree or 20-degree grid on the front picture. Front picture. It's been a couple years ago. Forgot.
Honorable mention, Footprint in the Sand, Louis Sapienza.
I was in Ocean City a few weeks ago with a lot of time on my hands, and so what occurred to me was there was a lot of stuff in the stands. So actually, that image was pretty flat when I took it. So that took a lot of post-processing. And the judge was correct on the grills in the middle. I had to work on that to pull those out a little bit. But I really liked that shot. It was pretty good, I think.
Honorable mention, mining bee and pollen, Mike Thomas.
That's a really small bee, like the size of a eraser tip, and he was on a lily, and I used a 90 millimeter macro on it with some macro lights and a diffuser to get it, and luckily he stayed still.
Honorable mention,
Wait. So we only had 3 on it.
oh, this is fourth, right. Fourth place, Don't Look Back, Mike Thomas.
Took that at the Anne Arundel County Fairgrounds at the annual rodeo. I was on one side of the field and JC was on the other, so I don't know what photo he got of this bull.
Third place, Waiting in Love, Christine Milliker.
This summer, I went with my sister, my mom, and my niece to the National Aviary in Pittsburgh. And this is actually indoors, which is probably where the blue lights come from. But there's a bunch of little birds, and it must have been about mating season because all of they were all paired up. And I just love the contrast of the beaks against everything else, and I just fell in love with these 2 little birds.
Second place, Leafs, Luis Sapienza.
This is a result of me tromping around the yard and taking 15 million pictures of leaves. But I happened to see that one. It actually is a much larger picture. And a good bit of post-processing went into that one, too. But I think it turned out pretty well.
Did you arrange anything?
No, I didn't arrange anything. That's just the way it was.
And first place, Eagle 1, Fred Venetia.
That one was taken, of course, but the big thing about that particular bird, it's a resident there, and it only has one talent. That's why you see a bird like that. What do you call it?
Before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure we thank our judge this evening. Janet, you've done an excellent job. Very long. She get extra pay. Thank you so much.
Everyone upload your winning images.
I also wanted to let everyone know that the Longwood Gardens is sold out on the 17th, so you will not be able to go that day if you don't already have tickets. Was there anything else we needed to say about that? Okay.
Send Mike your winning prints.
Send Mike your winning prints.
Use the website online. Christine,
And
as close as they can.
And thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.